Welcome into an Inside Carolina postgame, a little bit later than normal. Of course, it's Thanksgiving Day. Shout out to everybody. Hope everybody had a nice Thanksgiving. Food coma is real. I'm Tommy Ashley. That's Johnny T-Shirt sponsored and JohnnyT-Shirt.com sponsored. That's Rob Harrington in the middle. That is Dewey Burke joining us for the first time this year. Dewey, since I haven't talked to you at all in a while, I'll let you start us out. Your first takeaway from this one. Michigan State did Michigan State things, and Carolina was not able to buy a basket. Pretty much sums it up, but let's dig into it. What you got?
Yeah, I mean, where to begin? I thought we dodged a bullet at the end of the first half with Visar and Wilson both on the bench with 2. Could have got away from us. We kept it at 5, and I felt pretty good about how I hoped we would come out at the start of the second half. And save for a couple good plays, I thought we were pretty anemic offensively, and I thought Michigan State got every shot they wanted. I felt like they played the entire half below the free throw line, points in the paint. They killed us 46-34. Their shot quality was a lot better than our shot quality. However, we did get some looks and basically made none of them. You're not going to win many games shooting 4 for 23. I did think that they played harder. I thought they got better shots. And when we needed to make a couple to keep ourselves in it, we just flat out couldn't. Sometimes when, the opposing point guard chucks up a couple and they bank it in and, weird things happen and you realize it's not your night. But it's frustrating to have an opportunity to get a really high quality win. And it felt like a winnable game for at least 33, 34 minutes. And just didn't make enough plays, didn't make enough shots. And I thought Michigan State played well, and would have liked to see us put the ball into the post a little bit more consistently as well. Clearly our 2 best players are 4 and 5 men. I didn't think they got enough touches.
A lot of meat on that bone, Rob, and a lot of things we saw today we talked about going into the game. We talked about what Michigan State was going to try to do, and they did exactly what we expected them to do. But then they also shot it better than we thought. Your overall take, and let's dig into the details.
Yeah, I think there are 3 different ways you could take out this game and sort of frame it in your mind. One is, hey, look, this is a really good Carolina team that they're the team that beat Kansas like a drum in the second half. They had a bad day at the office. They couldn't hit any shots. At that point in the second half, everything snowballed. That's 1. 2 is, maybe it's not an elite team, but it's a lot better team than they played. There are some structural issues that they will have to work through, and it'll help, of course, when they get Seth Trimble back. That's 2. 3 would be Hubert's in over his head, and we're all just counting down the days until we start talking about a new coach. So I'm not on number 3. I'm probably not number 1 either, because I do think, as you said, Tommy, as we've discussed, there are some known issues with this team that got exposed today. And then another new one, which is the 3-point shooting, which I did not think that they would have, but we're a quarter of the way through the regular season, and they still are not shooting it consistently well. And of course, today things just really went sideways.
Let's talk about, let's clear off the Seth Trimble effect first, because Seth is not a 3-point shooter, and he's not going to add a ton there. He does affect the defensive end, absolutely, and some transition. But from both of you guys, how much does missing a player like Trimble, because I feel like, and I don't want to, his value is immense for this team, but he's not an elite scorer. He's not a guy that's going to get you a bucket anytime you need it, for the most part. I hadn't proven to be that. So you miss him on the defensive end, but when Carolina shoots it so poorly, does it really make that big a difference to be without Seth Trimble in a game like this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think this is a very opponent-specific answer. You're playing Michigan State. He matters maybe more than a lot of other teams you play against, because there's a grit and a toughness that they play with. And I think, Seth plays a little bit more like a safety in football, right? He's not afraid to mix it up and be physical. His athleticism, his speed, I think he could have done a better job defensively on Fears. So I think he impacts this opponent quite a bit. but he wasn't going to solve for our shooting. You're exactly right. So if we have Seth, maybe we lose by 6 instead of 16. I think maybe he's a 10-point difference in that game, but you're not going to win shooting 17% from 3, and you're not going to win if you go away from your easiest way to score, which is throw the ball inside to Visar and to Caleb. And I just didn't think we did that consistently enough. A lot of possessions dribbling east-west, which is a credit to their defense. We weren't getting downhill. We weren't putting the ball on the block where we came out to start the half, got the ball in the post and scored. And I just felt like we got away from that and ended up taking a lot of long threes late in the clock after a lot of east-west dribbling. And I just didn't – I said at the top, the shot quality that they got was a lot better than ours, and Seth's not going to impact that either. But I do think that he would have been impactful on the defensive end, on the glass, maybe in transition. But I still don't think we win that game the way we shot, even if Seth plays.
Yeah, Fears 8 for 10 on the day, including a couple yellows that went in, 19 points, only 7 assists. And I say only because he'd been average on almost 11. Rob, the Trimble effect on this team, great point about it, about the grittiness and the fight, physical type game tonight, but just going forward as well. They've got Kentucky on Tuesday. They've got Georgetown, and they'll have Ohio State, maybe have him back for that. The team's issues, I think, are beyond Seth Trimble's ability to fix. And that was kind of the point of my question and Dewey's perfect answer for this game specifically. Mm-hmm. But, Rob, expound on it in the way that you know how to.
Well, I mean, obviously he will make the team better. And I think what you saw that today, and I agree with Dewey, of course, that the 3-point shooting would have sunk them one way or the other. But it would be nice to have a guard who can play vertically. You saw Bogavac trying to do that. Like he actually understood the brief. I need to get into the middle against these guys and make some plays. And he did some of that early with some sort of drive and kick type plays, but he's not a finisher. Trimble is certainly a much better finisher than him. I think defensively, of course, it really shows up. And when you see a team shoot 62% from the field and a half, like Michigan State did. And that's another one. How do you win a game like that, especially when you're losing the rebounding battle as well? It's real tough. And I know that those things, it's related to the shooting and confidence and all that. But Trimble is a good player, obviously, but he can't solve all that stuff. And he's not a point guard either. I mean, we've talked about the shooting, but there's no way we can talk about this game without getting to some of the point guard stuff, because it is very much a black cloud hanging over the team. And I don't know if that's tractable. I'd be curious, Dewey's take on this. How do you deal with this situation? They can't get anyone out of the portal now, so they have what they have. How do you tailor an offense if you don't really have a natural point?
I think you got to give the ball to Dixon. Yeah, I mean, from what I understand from how they feel about him, which is really good. And I think more naturally his position, his size. The thing that's tough for me with Evans is because he's trying to run the team, he's not focused on what his one elite skill is, which is shooting the ball. And I thought he passed up some open ones that he could have taken because he's trying to get guys involved and thinking about running the offense versus he's a shooter. That's his one elite skill because he's undersized. He's not overly athletic. And so I would give the ball to Dixon. I know it's only 7 games in, and you're going to live with freshman mistakes. And look, he was not good in the first half against St. Bonaventure, but he was great in the second half, and that's a classic freshman performance. But look, when I played, as you guys know, Coach Williams was not afraid to hand the ball to a freshman. He did it. He handed it to Bobby Fraser. He handed it to Ty Lawson. He handed it to Kendall Marshall. He's handed it to a lot of guys. And so it'll be interesting to see if we do that. I don't know that we will. But that's what I would do to solve the point guard situation, Rob, and just live with his learning curve there because he's got size. He can shoot it. And I think his ability to be ready to play late February and March would take us to a more elite level than what I see today out of Evans. And I would play Evans off the ball and let him be a shooter.
That's what I was going to say. If you do that and then you get Trimble healthy, You go smaller, Rob. You put Evans at the 2, Trimble at the 3, and then you go Wilson Vasar. Is that the move?
You got to sit Evans. You don't start him.
Okay, Rob, your take?
I mean, I think it would be tough to go small after last season, and overall, I know Stevenson's not shooting it well. I do think that he's having a good defensive year. He had some bad moments in the first half today. I think it was a little bit surprising to him, the speed and physicality, but I like him in the lineup. I think this team has to be good defensively. I don't think they're going to be dynamic offensively. I think they can be solid, but their defense has to get a lot better. And I think they would give up too much to play small, especially if these guys aren't going to shoot it well. I mean, that would be the argument in favor of if you have sort of a Jay Wright era Villanova type set of guards who can all really stroke it. Well, that's different, but haven't seen any of that.
And they were all pros,
right? So you're going to go small for a team that's sacrificing too much. I think it would be more of an Evans Bogavac rotation, and then maybe they could for stretches go small. But I'm at the point where I haven't seen enough from any of the guards to think I'd want them to start at the 3.
Well, you got Jarin Stevenson. We've talked about his emergence, Rob, and I'll come to you, and then I'll bounce back to you, Dewey. 28 minutes, 1 rebound in that game today. In that game today, where Carolina shot it poorly, so there were offensive rebounds to get, and Carolina gets offensive rebounds. That's the Jarin Stevenson that we worried about seeing. Granted, it's one game, and Michigan State, I think, is a really good basketball team. But you got to have more than that, right? Because if you're not going to get that and you're not going to get the 3-point shooting, there's your dilemma too with Stevenson.
For sure, yeah. I mean, I think his value largely is non-statistical, or at least to this point it has been, because he gives them a lot of versatility with his ability to switch. But it didn't show up today because the pick and roll defense especially was just a disaster. So many wide open 10-footers. It wasn't, and I know, and this sort of it has bugged me all 5 years, the passive defensive approach, because Carolina all 5 years has been bottom Division I in forced turnover percentage. They're headed right back there again this year. They're tracking a little bit better right now, I think, largely because of Caleb Wilson's ability to sort of freelance defensive plays. But that passive approach, I think if they're going to do that, that makes Stevenson's really valuable, sort of playing this contained style. Now today it just totally broke down. But I still think Stevenson's a better choice than the other guys for now. To your point, though, I'm not excusing the lack of rebounds or physical play. If he's not shooting threes, well, it would be great if he would duck in occasionally and try to get a post bucket. And that has never really been his game going back to high school. Certainly it would help a lot. And he's not above criticism either.
I mean, he flashed early, and I was like, if you can get that aggressive Stevenson, and then he just totally vanished. Dewey, what do you think about the defensive approach here, again, especially in this game? Everybody talks about drop coverage, and Rob talking about the passive defense or whatever. What have you seen from this team? And really, I mean, it's a Hubert Davis thing, I think, but they do have more talent this year to be able to go a little more aggressive if they wanted to. But your thoughts defensively? Michigan State shot, 62% in the second half? I mean, you're not going to win like that.
No. I mean, look, I was at the Kansas game. I thought we played really hard. And although I'm on the record here on this medium of being against the switching, they're not switching 1 through 5. They're switching 1 through 4. And then when it gets under 10, then they do switch all 5, because typically, if the offense breaks down for your opponent, they're just calling for a high ball screen, and they're switching that under 10. That seems to be what we're doing. And I prefer fighting over screens, even like screens, because of the mentality it gives you. You're forced to be a little more active and mentally in tune versus just, hey, switch, point switch. That's me personally. That's not my approach that I would like to see. It's not how we played when I played. And I thought they got exposed doing it tonight. maybe more so on the pick and roll coverage with the drop coverage, as we're saying, than on the switching. I mean, I understand that the likely scouting report was to go under screens for fears, but not when the ball screen is set at 13 feet. Like, that's a 30-foot decision that you make. Like, he's foul line extended outside the 3-point line or high above the arc. You want to go under those screens because you're not worried about him pulling up and making a three. I don't think you go under the screen when he's under the free throw line and give him a 10-footer, which we continually did. So that seemed like a mental mistake to me. But yeah, it's just a more passive contain defense, which I think is in direct conflict with wanting to play fast. That's the hard thing, right? Is like, when we played, we denied everything. We pressured. We fought through everything. There was no switching unless it was a dire situation. I mean, literally, that's what he would say. You don't switch unless you're in a dire situation. So you fought through and just you played with so much pace that then you got the ball and you ran. And so I feel like there's a little bit of a conflict between how we defend and then our stated intent to get in transition. I don't think those things go together perfectly at the moment, which is something I struggle with when I watch.
Rob, go with that, because that's not something we've discussed, not something I've thought about, but it's accurate. I mean,
No, we did talk about it last year for sure.
Oh yes,
because it was an issue then too, because they said they wanted to go really fast. And in the Memphis game last year in that exhibition, they were racing up and down, and they started the season top 5 in tempo. And then gradually, as the season set in, it got slower and slower and slower. This season, the same thing's already happening. I mean, I completely agree with Dewey that if you want to get out and run, a great way to do that is to force turnovers. If you think that one way to compensate for this lack of traditional point guard is to get transition baskets, because you do have finishers, especially Wilson, such a great finisher, then get out in the open floor. But they won't do that as long as they are being as passive as they've been. And it just doesn't seem like a change that they want to make. I mean, I sort of resign myself to it. This is the defensive approach that they prefer. Maybe if they had completely different personnel, but this is 5 different teams, and it's been the same way for all 5. It's just it's more similar to what we see on the football side, Tommy. They just don't want to take too many risks. But it's just, we've seen this for 5 years, and it is difficult to reconcile those things. If you want to play at pace, then you would. I mean, other teams do it that way, but it's more common, I think, like Roy Williams would do when Dewey was playing, is to attack the passing lanes and to try to get out. And you don't have to full court press, but just to challenge the ball handlers a bit more. It was way too easy for Fears and the other Michigan State guards to just go wherever they wanted to go with the ball.
Talking with Rob Harrington and Dewey Burke here on the Inside Carolina Postgame Show. Carolina falls by 16 to Michigan State. Shout out to 400-plus people here in the live chat. Don't forget Johnny T-shirt and JohnnyT-shirt.com. Great for Christmas. It's coming up. Thanksgiving is almost over. 2 hours at least where we live, a little bit longer where Dewey is. Until Thanksgiving is over, and this Black Friday, there'll be plenty of Black Friday sales. Johnny T-shirt's a spot you can look. Also, go to InsideCarolina.com, sign up for us on the On3 network. If you're not a premium subscriber, do it, and you get 10% off Johnny T-shirt. What else in this one, Dewey, stood out? I felt like Caleb Wilson was pressed as much as he's been this season. I thought he did some great things. He had some dunks, but I also thought it was kind of like, if somebody's going to do it, it's going to have to be me at times in the second half. And I thought that hurt Carolina a little bit, but I do like the aggression. He's got to dial it back and tone it down a little bit. Yeah. But, man, when he gets going, he's tough to deal with. But Michigan State had an answer.
Yeah, look, this is, as you said, this is my first time on the podcast this season, so I haven't had a chance to speak to you guys about Caleb and how utterly impressed I am with him and how much I love his effort level, his intensity. And I was sitting there during the Kansas game thinking to myself, God, I played on a team when your best player also played the hardest, and you have no choice but to raise your level. And I think there were some guys tonight that didn't meet that level, and then you lose, right? I wish we shot it better and everything. And did he force a couple and make some freshman mistakes, but they were mistakes of effort. Like he's trying to stick his nose in there. And did he over-penetrate a little bit? I thought he got fouled a couple times that they didn't call, but it was a physical game. But man, no beef with him. I love that kid. I love that he feels like the kind of kid we used to always have, 5-star talent and 5-star quality kid. It's probably been said, but again, I haven't been on. The staff could not love him more. I mean, they couldn't. He's a 15 out of 10 kid. He's a program changer. And so I hope that he gets the season he deserves for the talent and the character that he brings. But yes, did he force a couple? Definitely. But his explosiveness, there's not been anybody like him since I've been around, since 2003. Like, he's way more explosive than Marvin. He's way more explosive than Brandon Wright. He's the best dunker that I've seen in a Carolina jersey. Now, I know Vince was before. That was before me. Like, since me, I'd never seen anything like it. I mean, I love that kid. And so I hope that we figure out a way to bring it the way that he brings it.
I agree with that. Caleb Wilson tonight, 6 of 13, 6 of 7. I love the free throw shooting for him. You score a ton of points. I mentioned that last week, Dewey, or last game. If he's going to shoot, that's how Tyler had so many points. Tyler scored a lot of baskets, but he also made all his foul shots, and you can steal a ton of points. And Wilson, 6 for 7. Rob, the pairing of he and Vasar tonight, or against Michigan State, dealt with that physicality, and there was a little bit of foul trouble in there. And this has been the Achilles heel for Carolina. We talked about the point guard. This depth at the 5 position, and this is when Trimble gets healthy and they figure out what they're doing with the guards. Maybe you can solve it with Stevenson, but it was not good there for that stretch in the first half, especially when Vasar goes out and Wilson's in a little bit of trouble too as well. I mean, that's another one of those things. The portal's not open right now. So how do they fix it?
I'm at a loss on this question because when James Brown came in before Zayden High, I didn't know whether to take that as a statement of confidence in Brown or a statement of non-confidence in High, because High, I believe he only played 4 minutes. So they seem to not be feeling great about his contributions in this game or his likelihood to play positively because Brown came in first, which I don't think has happened so far this year. Neither of them played well. It was a rough outing, as it has been all season. Some of it is they probably are lightning rods for criticism, even above and beyond what they should be. But the point is, I think this dovetails back too into the Stevenson rebounding issue. Is if my inclination would be to say, okay, we'll just run these 3 guys. Let this be your rotation. Stevenson starts at 3, but he also slides down in the post occasionally as he needs to. But he has to be a lot more physical than that.
We have to do that. We have. I mean, look, those guys can't do it. So
that's kind of, I think we're saying the same thing. It's just, I don't know how they fix it because it doesn't seem like the other 2 guys. I mean, like I said, we're now a quarter of the way through the regular season, and they haven't shown real strides, to me at least. And it doesn't seem like the coaching staff feels like they've made great strides, at least in how they deploy them. So there's got to be some other answer, because obviously they can't have Wilson and Vasar playing 40 minutes. Even if they wanted to do that, from a good conditioning point of view, they would have fouls. They have contingencies, and things have really bottomed out at times when those guys go to the bench.
Well, Dewey, to your point, if they can't do it, and Stevenson's a guy, so you have that 3-man rotation there, but that forces you to go small at times, which we've already talked about. So I guess my wonder is, why haven't they gotten any better at North Carolina? And granted, Zayden High wasn't on the team last year, and James Brown's still very young, but that's probably another discussion. So how do you mix and match it to get the most out of who you've got if you're not going with those guys, Dewey?
Yeah, I mean, look, we had a lot of success playing 3 bigs a lot of years. You just rotate them, and Stevenson's got to slide to the 4. And when he does that, you probably make sure you have Luka and Powell in the game, a little more perimeter size. Seth, is going to rebound well from the perimeter position. You got to survive those minutes. But I don't think those guys are ready to play, in a game like today or in a game like Tuesday. I don't see that. And so, the team that won in 05, Jawad, Sean, Marvin, rotate them. And that's what they did, right? And Marvin was certainly more physical than Jarin, and obviously played 15 years in the league, but Jawad was not overly physical, and we figured out a way to play him at the 4 spot in secondary break, and he went down and rebounded. And you look at the 09 team, it was Dion, Tyler, and Ed. I know Zeller played some, but not a ton. 3 bigs, and then obviously in 17 with Kennedy and Isaiah, and then sometimes they would have to go smaller with Justin and Theo. But to me, I don't see those guys being able to contribute. And so Jaren's got to figure out how to play bigger, and you got to just play those 3. That's what I think.
Rob, I take it you 100% agree with that, and because there's nobody else on the roster, and it's an issue. I think Jonathan Powell can play some minutes. He's small, though. That doesn't cure the size. And against the Michigan State team, you go smaller than they do, you get whipped. But, Rob, thoughts on fixing the lineup if it's possible? We hadn't even mentioned Luka Bogavac at point guard, and a lot of people are saying that in the chat and have said that. I don't know if that's a thing. But, Rob, just overall, fixable things that this team has. Granted, they're 6-1. They beat a pretty solid Kansas team that's showing even without Darren Peterson. But they got some big ones coming up, Rob.
Yeah, looking forward, this wasn't a critical game. It was disconcerting to be beaten so comprehensively, at least from my point of view. I thought early, I was like, okay, this may not be their day, but you lose a 4 or 5 point game, not the end of the world. After this, now they go right to Kentucky. And there's potential to lose that one badly just because of where they're playing. I think they need to show something. And I don't know how drastic Hubert will think about the lineup situation. I thought in the preseason, as you and I discussed, this would be a good year for Zayden High. He would be a valuable bench contributor, but it just hasn't happened. And these games are really important, as we know from last year. Although the ACC looks better, the non-conference schedule is really important, and I think they need to come out of all these games at least 3-2, including Georgetown in that mix as well. Right now, 1-1, and whatever they have to do to get these non-conference wins, if it means throwing in the towel on the 2 backup centers, I'm all for it. I don't know what they're seeing in practice, but it doesn't. Again, I go back to the point where Brown comes in before High. That doesn't sound like High is on the verge of breaking out to me, or that wouldn't have happened probably. And so it seems like maybe they just have to tighten up the rotation. I've criticized Hubert in the past for not playing the bench enough. This year, I think he's trying to play them, and they're not really giving him any reason to. The guard situation, I don't know what they will, if they will give up on Evans yet in favor of Dixon. I feel like that's probably a little ways off, but he's got to play a lot better. I mean, you can't disappear that way. And I thought Dixon, at least today, showed a little bit more off the bounce. At least he seemed more comfortable playing against that type of opponent, that type of defense, whereas Evans was really backed off way too far out on the perimeter where he would make his first pass. Dixon was trying to get a little deeper. So I was just looking for any kind of positive signs. I do want to mention Jonathan Powell, since you mentioned it, Tommy, because I thought physically he answered the bell in this game. Like he was mixing it up. He was trying.
It's 7 rebounds.
He's not an athletic guy, but he was getting after it. So I would give him. He was a bright spot for me in this game.
Yeah, I was going to mention he had 7 rebounds in 23 minutes. Dixon only played 8 minutes, which was surprising to me. It felt like he was out more than that. You mentioned James Brown with only 7, Zayden High with only 4. Dewey, what do you think about Luka? A lot of people expected him to be great or very, very good. I still think he's got a 30-point game in him. I'm going to stick with that hot take. But what do you think about Luka's ability to sort of blend in with this team? He is not a shy individual. It can certainly tell.
Look, I like a lot of what I see. I don't necessarily see point guard. That's not where I'm at. But I see a creator. I see somebody that can take a dribble handoff and get into the paint and make plays, not afraid to shoot it, not afraid to go to the rim and try to finish. Tommy, you and I have talked for years about just being willing, like just be willing to take and make a tough shot. And he is willing. And that's part of my argument about Evans right now, is that he's so worried about trying to run the team. He's not willing to focus on his elite skill. So Luka, I think he continues to get more and more comfortable. He's big, by the way, like being courtside, and he's a big dude, big, strong dude. Again, I don't see point guard, not for me. Maybe in stretches, but he makes plays. I think he will continue to get more comfortable. And I like running pick and rolls with him, dribble handoffs with him, running sets to get him looks, getting him to the rim to go to the line. I think he can continue to emerge and be really, really helpful. So when Seth comes back, I do not expect to see him move to the bench. I don't think that makes sense. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what they do. But I think he's probably your most creative player on the wing, and so he needs to be out there and have the ball in his hands quite a bit.
Yeah, and a couple stats. Like you mentioned, Rob, Jonathan Powell had 7 rebounds, no turnovers. Luka had 5 assists, no turnovers. He felt like he was in the middle of every play there, and I love him getting in a little scrap with Fears there on the foul line and things like that. You need that fire. Rob, we've been on here 32 minutes, which is a little longer than the post games, and shout out to Dewey for joining us for this one. It's been a good, interesting mix. I'm gonna let you both guys get final thoughts here. We're 7 games in already. I mean, it's ridiculous how fast it's flying by. 6-1, Kentucky on Tuesday night, which is a big one, at Rupp. We know how that place can be. We know that Kentucky struggled a little bit. Thoughts going forward, Rob, overall, what we've seen so far up to Thanksgiving for this North Carolina team?
My first comment was you could take this one of 3 ways, sort of different gradients of Hubert friendliness. I'm sort of in the middle about what I think about the team. I can't just write it off as a bad shooting night because too many things went wrong, especially on defense. So for me, I can't put all of it on the shooting, certainly some of it. At the same time, I do think this is a good team. I continue to believe that they'll shoot it better. I know I've said that all year and they haven't, but I still think they'll shoot it better, and that this can be more consistently the team that beat Kansas, which is a good team, especially with Peterson. That one's gonna age well. And so that's a building block going forward. I think they can do more of that, but it's TBD because there are structural issues with the roster that don't appear to have an easy fix. And some of them are maybe more hopeful than others. I'm hopeful and optimistic the shooting will come around. I don't know about point guard and backup center. And those are 2 pretty big slices out of what a team can do, especially at point guard. So it's wait and see. I'm not going to sit here and say, Tommy, they need to win at Rupp, but I do think they need to show better than they did in the second half for sure.
Dewey, final thoughts for you. You haven't been with us, like you mentioned, so the floor is open. You can talk about anything you want to talk to. You saw them up close in Kansas. Carolina's clearly got to shoot the basketball better. None of this stuff matters if they're going to shoot it poorly all year. We'll see how that shakes out. But your overall thoughts on what you've seen 7 games in?
Yeah, and I was there Tuesday also, so I've seen them twice in person, which is a good lens, because you can watch the bench, you can watch the staff, you can watch how they interact with each other, and these guys are together. They seem to like each other, which matters. I think the roster construction, although not perfect, is decidedly better than last year. We're so much bigger, so much longer. Obviously more athletic, and you've got a bona fide NBA player on your team, which is helpful. So I think we're going to be much, much better than last year. I actually love the fact that we're going to Rupp on Tuesday. because that's as tough a place as there is to play. And we're going to find out a little bit more what they're made of. It's hard to make shots on the road. It's hard to get calls on the road. It's hard to hear and think and talk on the road, especially in a place like that. So this is a toughness check that I'm actually quite looking forward to, because they got tested today from a toughness perspective and didn't pass the test. Not today. And by the way, making shots in a hostile environment against a good defensive team that's well coached and elite is also toughness. You have to be tough enough to make the shots. And so let's see what they do on Tuesday. I think that I'm really glad we're not like going home to play Radford. Like, I think this is great. Like, get back off the canvas and go effing fight.
The Roy Williams coming out in Dewey Burke there. Toughness makes shots, 100%. It's not all about being the most physical. It's about making tough plays in tough environments and tough situations. That's Dewey Burke. That's Rob Harrington. I'm Tommy Ashley. It's been Inside Carolina Postgame. Shout out to Johnny T-Shirt. Rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. Hit the like button on this YouTube channel. Everything you can do, and sign up at InsideCarolina.com for the On3 premium membership. If you haven't already, shout out to the 400 plus that have been in the live chat with us. Happy Thanksgiving. Everybody stay safe. Have a good weekend. We'll be back on Tuesday night, Carolina and Kentucky post game. See you then.